States has recently nailed down deals to release dozens of detainees being held without charge in the notorious Guantanamo prison over the past 12 years. Administration sources in Washington say the deals to release the prisoners have been bogged down mostly by Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel. They noted that Hagel is reluctant to sign the deals to avoid personal responsibility for the consequences. The Pentagon says every case needs proper and thorough review. About 4 to 5 years ago, 79 of nearly 150 prisoners in Guantanamo had been approved for transfer after being assessed as posing no security risk to the country. But despite the approval, only one prisoner has been released so far. Crossing over to Washington and joined by human rights activist Dr. Randy Short. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Short. First of all, how is this continuing to happen? On the one hand, we know that the majority of the people have not had a trial, have not really been charged with anything, and yet we're talking about 12 years of being behind bars. 1, 2, we know about the whole torture allegations, and nothing is being done. And now, third, that they have been basically cleared for release from before, but still technically are being held. How can the U.S. get away with these violations, first of all, to its own constitution, besides the international community?
Well, they've always done it. If anything, this parallels what the former Soviet Union did with prisoners that it had. So it shows a lack of the professed democratic values of the. And we can't ever get away from the fact that the United States has about 25% of the world's prisoners. When you think about within the last week, you had 2 brothers, Henry McCullum and Leon Brown, that were in jail on death row for 30 years for crimes they didn't commit. We've got Albert Woodfox, who's been in solitary confinement as one of the survivors of the Angola 3 for 40 years. We have places like the Holmesburg prison in Pennsylvania, where for decades they experimented and killed black men primarily. This is what America is. What you're seeing is the African Americanization of America's international policy towards its enemies, where now everybody's a black and everyone's going to get black treatment, and they keep people in jail here like they do overseas because they feel like it. This is the arrogance of what I call post-racial Anglo-American apartheid on steroids, but not within America, but outside. Now everyone's being treated the same way. They're making this a prison planet to attain their geopolitical and economic goals. And in a sense, these people are keeping Guantanamo open by them remaining in prison there justifies how the president didn't keep his promise to close the place. Because we have dangerous people, we can't let them go, so we have to keep them locked up. The same way the United States now has privatized prisons and they give people money, so you have to keep the jails full for the money to keep coming. So it's big business.
Well, Dr. Short, you just talked about inside the domestic situation, basically with the prisoners inside the United States. But I guess a broader question then would be, why isn't the international community then putting pressure on Washington because of these violations?
I want to say I'm intrigued. I think people worship Anglo-Americans and the British somehow as this righteous force for good in the world, in spite of the evidence to the contrary. People haven't reached a point of beginning to see these Anglo-dominated societies, including Canada and Australia, as rogue white settler colonies that don't play by the rules. And I don't know why people can't see that. How many people do they need to jail or kill like Michael Brown? How many wars, how many Takfiri groups do they need to fund before people take a second look and think about what the Anglos have been doing the last 400 or 500 years? They certainly haven't loved their neighbors. So they're modernistic bullies. They are able to use modernity and high-tech weaponry to bully people, but in terms of the human rights and things that they profess, there's not much of that, is there, honestly?
Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Randy Short, human